Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar of Flanders DC on how to sell your work as an NFT. My name is Anne Klaas. I'm here today with Ryan Gill from Crucible, who is happy to answer all the questions regarding this topic. But let me please quickly introduce your platform. So you will find at your right or at the bottom of your screen the chat function. And this you can say maybe where are you this morning, if you have a technical question, whatever. But of course, today is all about asking questions, one big Q&A. So that we asked to do at the second tab, where you have a specific place for questions. When you write down your question, there's a little triangle just next to it. We are today here with more than 200 people, so a lot of interest for NFTs. So if you want to ask the same question, it's better to vote and click on this little triangle so we can see which questions have most of the interest for the whole group. And then the third tab you will see is on polls. You will see we have already published one. So we ask you to enter already your reply to this poll, and then we can see a little bit how the audience is already informed or not about NFTs. But first of all, I would like to introduce you to our speaker, Ryan. The floor is yours. Oh, one little thing I forgot. This webinar will be recorded, so you can view it again afterwards on our YouTube channel. Ryan.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you. It's great to be here this morning. I am a U.S. citizen. I recently moved to Amsterdam, and I got my residency. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Crucible that we started in November of 2018. Back at the end of 2018, really around this idea of an open metaverse, which now has become kind of a buzzword, but we've been talking about how Web3 and NFTs and gaming and play to earn are the future for a couple of years now. So it's great to see everybody start to catch up. And I think certainly the pandemic and the lockdown really accelerated a lot of what we're seeing. So I get asked to explain these things all the time, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So we can see in the poll that half of our audience is rather new to this topic, but we do have also some people who actually minted already their first NFT. So before we dive a little bit deeper, let's maybe start with the beginning. I have 10 more general questions, and then we will go over to the Q&A for the second part of the webinar. So don't hesitate to put your own questions at the right. So let us understand what are the opportunities and the challenges for the creative industries today. Before we dive into NFT, maybe we should do one step backwards and ask our first question: what is blockchain?
So the blockchain is a word that gets used a lot for things that it's not necessarily right for. The easiest way to think of a blockchain is a network of computers that can all sort of agree on something without one central source. So you hear decentralization a lot when we talk about the blockchain. The significance of all of this is that it takes power and control away from these sort of like one source or multiple sources that kind of control everyone and everything. And it sort of like rebalances out again. So the blockchain is a set of technology through networks of computers that allow that to happen. The first use case was the Bitcoin, which now we've seen grow and kind of accumulate a lot of monetary energy, things around money and store of value. Then the next use case was the Ethereum blockchain, and that kind of went beyond just money and into organization. And it allowed for sort of decentralized organization of new companies and new ways of trying to, bring people together. We'll go into the NFT as well, but the blockchain is sort of the core substrate. It is the sort of infrastructure that makes all of this possible.
Okay, and then indeed, let's jump immediately to the definition of NFT, or the non-fungible token.
Yeah, so with Ethereum, there are tokens. They're sort of like hashed units on the blockchain that can represent something. Those can be fungible and they can be non-fungible. Usually I don't start by defining fungibility, but I think it'll be important here. So fungible means interchangeable. So like a dollar is interchangeable. It doesn't matter which dollar you have, you can change them. When you talk about non-fungibility, that's unique assets. That's something, if I have one NFT and you have another one, we can't exchange them. They're not the same value. And so that's why it's worked really great for collectibles, and like how now digital collectibles are starting to take off. So the first big movement around NFTs has been art, but we'll see fashion, we'll see gaming, we'll see sports. It'll kind of take over all of the different industries.
Okay. So, of course, we can say it's a little bit of a hype at the moment. Could you dive a little bit more and deeper about the pros and cons of working with NFTs?
Yeah, it's important to think that the NFT is not the what, it's the how. So right now, you might look around and you'll see NFTs as art, digital art. A lot of like big auction houses are starting to do, auctions. That in the current form, NFTs like that, I think, is a bubble. I think it happens very quickly. I think the hype built very quickly. If you're on an app called Clubhouse, last year, I kind of helped bring the conversation to that app, and it became sort of celebrity driven very quickly. And because everybody was locked down and no one was on tour or no one was on set, all these creative people needed an outlet of how to continue to do their business. And so NFTs was kind of the perfect storm for that. But just like usually the Hollywood sort of like red carpet type mindset takes things over and just like hypes it up, right? So what you have right now is NFTs in its current form in what I believe is really overvalued. But NFTs will evolve into something else because it's not the what, right? The NFT is just the method, it's the medium. And so if you think of NFT kind of like CD, right? The CD isn't the music. It's just the medium in terms of how the music was distributed. And so the NFT is a similar thing. I think it will settle in and it will kind of reinvent itself.
Okay. And could you dive a little bit further, like what would be the pros and cons? Why would a creative artist be on board, yes or no?
Yeah, to me, you'll hear a lot of people talk about different things, but to me, all of this, the important pro is decentralization, right? Web3 as a concept, which is this sort of like new decentralized internet, it's permissionless. No one needs to ask for any permission. It's for everybody. So a lot of groups have been marginalized and not given the same amount of access in other, stages of business. Like this is just limited to your ability to go online and learn about it. And once you learn about it, once you wrap your head around it, it's fully accessible to you. And we'll get into like what you need to sort of learn, but it's all online. And so if you're a creative person today, it makes sense to try to learn this stuff and try to take some control over your career. And the cons would be, I think just a lot of noise right now. It's probably difficult to just go straight through the front door and figure out who to trust and what to learn. So there's definitely like a signal to noise ratio that you need to, kind of prioritize.
So you believe it would be important to be on board quite early and understand the whole progress instead of jumping on the hype, but at least know how everything is working and then find your own place in this?
Well, it depends. I mean, not everybody goes to first principles and learns things from the like primitive technical levels. There's a lot of platforms that exist to make this a really easy thing for an artist who says, I'm not technical. I don't even really know much about business, but this seems like an opportunity to make some more money and sell my art. That is possible. But I think it is incumbent upon someone who's entrepreneurial to learn how this works. And so to go to the primitive level of, the actual technology that we're talking about here, why it's significant, and also learning enough around the context so that when you are dealing with noise, you can recognize that. You don't waste your time with people that are doing this for, just more extractive reasons of their own to pocket, more money.
Okay. Okay, then another big question that came up in press, but also with everybody who subscribed, because what is the sustainable impact of creating an NFT? Because some people are not even open to look at it because they heard so much negative news about it.
Yeah, so there was a lot of news around the time that like Beeple's Christie auction did $70 million. There was a big, almost it seemed coordinated press release of how bad NFTs were on the environment. And in some ways, that's a bit of a red herring, because really what's bad for the environment is fossil fuels in terms of how we use it for consuming energy. And the blockchain is, like I said, a network of many computers. So a lot of computers use a lot of energy. And so the way the blockchains work primarily right now are very unsustainable. But that's not an artist minting an NFT. That's the blocks being produced on the blockchain. And so I think it's a little ingenuine to blame artists who are minting NFTs, because really the problem is our use of fossil fuels as energy. And as an industry, the blockchain and NFTs is certainly not top of the list for what is most toxic, right? Fashion, for example, is very wasteful. You know, a lot of banking and traditional industries, especially oil, are far worse for the environment. I think with the blockchain, what you have is a group of people that really actually care about this issue. And the blockchain creates the incentives, I think, that we'll see it solved. We're already seeing a lot of shifts towards like more sustainable ways of producing energy from blockchains. And so I would, yeah, don't feel discouraged thinking that if you're minting NFTs, you're a big part of the problem. I think actually by getting involved in the community and learning what you can, you're probably a part of the most promising solution that we have.
Okay, thank you. Now that we know a little bit more about what it is and how does it work, I think a lot of people here also want to know how to actually create an NFT, how to create it step by step. Maybe I know we are here with a lot of different creative industries and a lot of different ways of looking at it, but could you make it a little bit more tangible? Where to start? How to take it step by step?
Yeah, so I'll try to simplify this as much as I can, but certain parts of it can't be simplified because then you kind of lose why they're important. If you think about your life so far as like a member of society, it's been very important for you to learn how to have a bank account, right? How to open a bank account. And you could even argue in some parts of the world, understanding credit is important. I think this next phase that we're moving into with all of this, it's important to learn how to set up a wallet and how wallets work. So that would be the first step. One of the easiest wallets to use is Metamask, Metamask. That'll be a browser extension in the internet browser, which you'll use to log in, and it will be the thing you hold your Ethereum in, and it will be the way that you do transactions on these websites. So once you have your MetaMask wallet set up, then you can choose to go to a specific platform. You've probably heard of Nifty Gateway or Maker's Place. There's a lot of very big ones, but you can kind of do your own research in terms of like where you think you fit in best. If you're a musician or an independent artist, go look at Foundation or Zora. Yeah, Pascal just put the link in the chat, and that's only just one wallet. So I'm not saying that's the only one, but that's definitely the most used and most sort of user friendly at this stage. And then you're going to work with a platform in order to do what's called minting. So you have your art. It's a file, most likely, and then you're going to mint that file on the blockchain, which means you're going to assign it a non-fungible token, which gets a sort of like key. And then now, whether it's that one piece of art or you create a collection of 100 of them, there's going to be one single NFT for every sort of like edition that you create. And the way you structure the NFT drop is just as much art and creativity as the actual art itself. So there's no rules for this. It's very experimental. You can do a one of one on, say, a super rare, or you can choose to do open editions where you create one work of art and it's open for 10 minutes. And however many people buy it in that 10 minutes, that creates 200 editions. So every one of those editions is going to have its own NFT that proves its unique existence, and it proves the ownership of the person who's purchased it.
Okay. Let us stop for a minute, because that was already a lot of information this early this morning. I know I've been investigating in this topic myself, and the minute you start using blockchain and crypto and mining and everything in one sentence, everybody's a little bit overwhelmed very often. So let me have a quick look at the chat. No steam coming off everybody's ears.
Also, I want to add,
Yes.
none of us who talk like this started talking like this. We all had like a year or two when we, honestly, our brains would be tied into knots and our eyes would cross, and it's all very complex. Like this is the most complex thing that you could be paying attention to. It's also maybe one of the most important things. So when you feel that like, this is too much, I don't know, I'm so confused, just know that everybody started at that point, and like just kind of fall in love with being a student again of something new, you know, and like challenging yourself, because you have to be self-directed in your education, not only in learning the basics, but also keeping up in all the changes. Like it's a community that all learns together and experiments together, but like, just don't have the misconception that like anybody who's out here, you know, throwing these buzzwords around like has always known them. We all started at a point where we were completely confused, and also it was overwhelming and intimidating. So, you know, don't let that discourage you.
No, absolutely not. No, it's also the nice part. Everybody's pioneering, and still a lot of opportunities. So if we are looking at this step-by-step creating an NFT, of course, there are also certain costs related not only to the creation, but also to how to mint it, how to put it on the internet as an NFT, and then, of course, how to sell it. Can you give us a little bit a direction on this topic?
Yeah, so this is where it gets a little bit ridiculous at the moment. So Ethereum is the blockchain where most of this is happening. There are many other blockchains popping up because Ethereum's fee structure is actually really difficult for a lot of people. The way Ethereum works is with gas fees. So there are fees of transactions on the blockchain based off of how many transactions are happening. And so you'll hear a lot of people complain about gas fees. And at certain points when everybody's trying to buy Ethereum, the gas fees are actually cost prohibitive. You know, most people who are not wealthy can't even afford to mint. And even if you can afford it, sometimes it just cancels it out. You know, like transferring a token from one wallet to another, the gas fee would actually equal what that thing is valued. So there's a lot of people trying to solve that, but right now gas fees are what you have to pay. OpenSea is a really great platform that's much more open and closed than many closed ones. So you can go on, you can set it up, you can do whatever you want. They've created something called lazy minting, where they will actually defer the gas fee to the person purchasing the NFT. And that makes it a little bit easier on the artist. There's also some grants that friends of mine have created called the Sevens grant. If you go to grants.art, I believe, there's a grant fund of a lot of people who've made a lot of money who are just, you know, providing it for artists that can't afford gas fees. So there's a lot of support out there in the community, but it is a problem right now, the gas fees.
And if you sell your NFT through an existing platform, there is also a commission that the platform is taking on the sales price. So sometimes they include the minting, sometimes not. What is your experience in that?
Usually not. Lazy minting again will defer the gas fee to the buyer, which sometimes they're not crazy about. But a lot of these NFTs are being bought for sometimes hundreds of thousands, so the gas fee it's part of them purchasing it. The fees can go all over the place. OpenSea takes a couple percent, you know, something like a Nifty Gateway takes like a 30%, and it usually falls in between there. they also have secondary markets. So really important thing about NFTs and why you should even be considering it is because when things are on chain, now you get a royalty paid to you every time that's sold anytime on the secondary market. So usually with art, you get your money when the buyer buys it, but then like there's a whole world out there of it changing hands, and the artist doesn't see that. Imagine how much money Michael Jordan left on the table by not having a piece of the royalties from the secondary market of Jordan shoes, right? It's billions of dollars. So artists now have the opportunity to get royalties for the life of that artwork. And that's actually something that's meaningful for an artist. So some platforms like Nifty have their own secondary market. Others like OpenSea are a secondary market, but pretty much everything you can get in and out with Metamask.
Okay. Somebody was asking in the chat, like, could you put a number on it to actually mint an NFT, which is related to the gas fee? So I understand it, but is it like
I can't,
€5, 500 euro?
It's a fluctuating number. Some days it'll be in the hundreds, 150, 200. Usually it falls around maybe 30 or 40, but it's also going to be dependent on the price of the transaction that you're looking to make.
And is it also related to the difficulty of the file you actually want to?
No, it has no bearing on the difficulty of the file. It's all determined on the transaction volume on the blockchain. So really hyped days with bull markets and Elon Musk tweeting XYZ, those are going to be very high gas fee days, which is ironic, right? It's kind of contradictory to the whole fact. As scale happens and more adoption takes place, it becomes less affordable for most people.
Yeah, because somebody asked, like, where is it actually going? But it's to actually pay the price of the energy.
Yeah, it's basically the fee structure for the blockchain. Now there are layer twos. This is getting a little more technical, but there are companies and people that like Ethereum that are building solutions to this issue. The biggest one is Polygon. It used to be called Matic, M-A-T-I-C, but it's called Polygon now. So you can look at these. They're bringing gas fees down. Again, you got to constantly reinvent your education on this.
Okay. So you already mentioned a few, like Foundation and OpenSea, but what are the possible channels to sell an NFT? Could you also sell them on your own web shop, for example?
Yes, you can. So it's important to remember, again, decentralization, the whole point is that you don't have gatekeepers, right? And what has happened in NFT is there has become gatekeepers. Nifty Gateway is a great example of a gatekeeper. You need to be approved, right, by the founding team. And so that's very much against the whole point. But they've built a brand. There's a lot of attention on it. So they kind of feel like a old sort of like type company where you have to go in, but once you're in, you get a lot of exposure and you're more likely to sell things. But you don't need that. You can, with wallets, do all of this on your own. You have to be more technical to know how to hash it to a blockchain, how to mint it, how to transact it. But you can. There's also companies like Origin, which you can work with, and they'll build this stuff directly into your website. If you guys are familiar with Blau, my buddy Justin, he did his album NFT drop on his website with Origin. Same thing with Jake Paul. I think he did the same.
Okay. Yeah, and there was also one question specifically on audiovisual. So we have Theta, for example, for fashion. You have Digital X, you have Dematerialized, you have Palm, Nuno, Trucy. A lot of platforms coming up. Hicket Nunk was also mentioned earlier as a possible more green alternative. Another question that was asked a lot is about the intellectual property. You just mentioned already the resale options and royalties. Can you explain from the beginning again how intellectual property is linked to an NFT?
So it's not certain yet. The intellectual property is still going to fall within sort of the legal definition of all of this. So technically the artist should be the one to decide this in terms of like what rights are given with the NFT or not. I think most people lean towards this being a derivative of a piece of work, not the ownership of the actual IP. But I think you're going to see a lot of experiments where artists choose to sell NFTs that do give collaborative, rights to the IP. Again, it's the how, not the what. The what is completely up to the creator.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes the smart contracts are also linked to the platform. So it's important then to dive deeper into the specific way of looking at it. So because some people also are thinking like, once it is sold, can I still show it?
Absolutely.
Or can I still print it? Or
yeah. In the internet, everything's infinitely copyable, right? You can screenshot anything. So the NFT doesn't stop anyone from looking at anything. Mm-hmm. It only just proves ownership. Yeah. So only the one with the NFT owns the thing. You'll hear a lot of people talk about the Mona Lisa. I don't know if it's like the best example, but like no one owns the Mona Lisa yet. Everyone can look at it. You can go online and Google search it. It's everywhere, right? Yeah. But no one owns that. The museum owns that. So. Yeah.
So the video of Charlie Bit My Finger is not longer on YouTube. It's because they decided it in the smart contract and not because it's necessary to do that.
It's what this all really is just like it's a flex in terms of ownership, right? It's there is a lot of expression that's taking place, but at the same time, it's a status thing. I own a piece of history. That's what it's about.
Okay. So we are here with 12 different creative sectors. Do you see different approaches for the three groups, if I could call them like that, like the arts, the applied arts, and interactive arts? What is the difference or the opportunities? How do you see it towards NFTs?
Yeah, I think each one has different behavior attached to it. What we see right now is the art world. NFTs become digital artists being accepted into fine art. So now they're doing Christie's, they're doing Sotheby's, they're being accepted and they're being acknowledged to be equal peers as fine artists. That's the stage we're in. I think that's probably what's overhyped and is a bubble because that prices most people out. It's really not about decentralization. I have a lot of great friends who have made a lot of money and it's been good for their career. But as we move more towards applied art with fashion, there's more to it than just aesthetics, right? There's things like expression. There's identifying with something. There's signaling certain groups. So we see that the Fabricant is here down the street. INDG is behind me. So Amsterdam's like the hub for digital fashion. I think we're going to start to see that a lot more. And then what I'm focused on is like interactive art with gaming. And I think that's where things will get really very interesting and a lot bigger and a lot more sustainable.
Okay. One of the questions in the chat also is because a lot of the creative people are, of course, making tangible things. And the question is if we can have some examples who sell physical pieces of art, etc., in combination with the NFT technology. How does that work, the whole digital approach?
Yeah, again, it's not the what, so it could be anything. Certainly NFTs can prove ownership for physical things or statues, or right now it's largely more digital because the world's been locked down. And now that it's opening up, I think you're going to start to see a lot more like physical installations. People like G-Monk, people like Bill Ellis, these digital artists that do cross into physical and are highly respected to be doing, things. I think probably the next museum is probably something to look at. I think a lot of things will happen there as well. But again, it's whatever you want to do, really. It's all just a giant experiment that we're all doing together. So there are no rules or boundaries here. That's kind of what's great about it.
Yeah. It's like the Artifact who was selling the sneakers, both the real ones and the NFTs, and they said that the NFT was the basic thing that you bought, and you got the sneaker on top of it. It's
exactly.
Then another word that pops up sometimes, but needs maybe a little bit of explanation. What is a metaverse?
So, as humans, we're very story-driven creatures. So think of the internet as this story, that's taking place over 3 acts, right? The first act was in the 90s. We had Web 1. Most of us remember like dial-up internet, chat rooms. I had America Online. I don't know what you guys had here at that time, but that was Web 1. And then the dot-com era started Web 2, right? Web 1 was a lot of web developers. Web 2 kind of moved into mobile apps, you know, and it was really about business. And so that was a lot of mobile app developers. We now find ourselves like at the beginning of Web 3. And so Web 3 is the metaverse. It's the start of it. And it's the internet built by game developers is the best way to think about it. So it will still feel very much like the internet, but it will actually resemble more like gaming. You know, it'll have avatars, has skins, all these business models that have come from gaming that are now beginning to like dissolve. Games had like a beginning and an end. They're now like dissolving into just places that people spend time and things happen and you can buy things. There's economies in them. So the metaverse is that. It's over the next 10 years. I call it basically the internet, just built by game developers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which will give a lot of opportunities for creatives also, I think.
Yeah.
My last official question, and then we will dive into all the Q&A, because of course the discussion and the questions from the audience are most important. But as you said, it's very, very important to dive into it and learn. But where do we start? Where can we learn more on NFTs? Do you have some tips?
You know, I'm not on it as much anymore, but Clubhouse really is one of the sort of best places to plug in. I have a club there called the Open Metaverse. If you want to join our Telegram, that's probably one of the best places to just plug in. And I'm going to close it soon, but it's still open right now. So if you'd like to join, you can come there. That's gaming. That's a lot of the Web3 community. That's a lot of the artists like Beeple and Blau and Artifact. They're all of our friends in the community. This really has become like a renaissance, you know, like a modern digital renaissance taking place. And the best way to learn, you can go online and read everything, but the best way to learn is just become a part of the community.
Yeah, because indeed, even because it's kind of a new topic. So Telegram, Clubhouse, Discord, also new platforms to communicate where these people all find each other. Okay, let's dive into some questions also from the audience. Is how do you decide on pricing? Because I've been reading a lot, like you can only launch your first NFT once. So how do you decide on the pricing? Where do you start? What is your reference point?
Yeah, price discovery is a tough one. I mean, if you have an existing audience, then you should know generally what your audience is into. You're going to price things based in Ethereum, so understand where Ethereum is. I think right now, I don't remember where it is, but a couple thousand. So you'll probably be selling it in a fraction of Ethereum, right? And that's what you'll set. So if it's a first, don't try to blow it out the water. Just try to toe the line, test things out. Yeah, Ethereum's 2200. So usually 0.1 to 0.5 Ethereum for an established artist is a good place to start. If you have like hundreds of thousands of engaged people that are in your audience that know Web3 and are into crypto, then you can start much higher. Somebody like Blau has spent years in the community, and that's why he made 11.5 million with his album. But like that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of really strong community work, and it takes a lot of whale type relationships, people that are very wealthy that buy NFTs. You have to kind of identify who those people are. If you're just going in brand new, I think 0.1 to 0.5 is it's like a good place to try to start. Just be successful with that. Places like Foundation, once you sell something, they'll give you another invite to invite other people, and there's kind of rewards for just actually doing a transaction. So yeah.
Yeah, but first you need to be selected indeed.
Something like you can OpenSea, you don't need to be selected. Rarible, you don't need to be selected. There are others that are just more open, but again, then the noise is pretty high. There's a lot of people on there. It's hard to cut through, So the ones that are selective, once you're selected, you get a lot of exposure. It's good for you, but it's sometimes hard to get on. You have to know the right people.
Indeed, because that's another question from the audience. Like, once you minted an NFT, what is the best way to market it and find possible buyers? So.
Yeah, sorry, that's my Telegram. A lot of you guys are joining. So I think the best way, your audience again, your brand. You don't need to like reinvent the wheel with that. I think, the one thing that you should think about differently with this, like I said, is the community that exists and the people who spend a lot of money on NFT art. Like getting to know those people, like Whale Shark, 888, Metakovan, these whales, they're out there, that they are the big sort of like big wealthy sort of buyers of NFT art. So the more you can get involved with those people, if they like your art, that's when you start to get into the millions.
Okay. There are also some questions on, do I need a VAT number to actually mint an NFT? And how should I handle the income stream by selling NFTs?
You do not need any government credential to sell NFTs. The whole point of decentralization and blockchain is that you don't need that. You need the internet, you need an email to set up a Metamask. Once you get the wallet, you're given everything you need to protect that wallet. And if you lose it, you'll never see any of that stuff again because there's no one else to go run to, right? So it's a lot of responsibility, but you have to be accountable to that responsibility in order to keep your stuff. Think of it like your wallet, your actual wallet with cash. If you lose your wallet, like no one's going to help you get it back, So if you lose your keys or your seed phrase for the wallet that you have online, no one's going to be able to help you get it back. So that's a lot of responsibility, but a lot of people want that, right? A lot of people don't want to trust other people with their stuff. They'd rather, take it on themselves. So no, you don't need a VAT. If you want to create a business now that's doing things with NFTs, of course you do need a VAT. But just as an individual artist or a person, you don't need any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. But once you have sold NFTs and it's an income, you said earlier we just need to see it as a turnover.
Yeah. So be careful. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer, and I am not really that familiar with the Netherlands yet. But I know that they look at this stuff under the wealth tax. There are certain brackets that you'll fall under depending on your competency with it. But what I'll say is, one, wallets and decentralization are very hard for governments to track. So it's up to you. And two is, I would really understand what it means to be compliant in the country that you live in, and just make sure you fall under compliance. Like don't try to evade or anything this way. But at the same time, it's gonna be very difficult for everyone to track it. So it's really up to you to make sure that you're reporting under the compliant levels of your government and that you're paying what they're asking you.
Yeah, I know Europe is still involved and trying to catch up with regulations and everything, but even that is still pioneering, indeed. Can you transfer ownership of an NFT or destroy it as a creator? Absolutely, yes. Transferring ownership is the transaction of the NFT. So when someone buys an NFT, that's what it is. It's transfer of ownership. And then something called burning is when you send the token to a wallet that no one has access to. It's gone forever. No one can ever access it or transfer it or anything. So when you hear of burning tokens, that's selling it to a null wallet, one that no one has the key to. But if I, as a creator, have sold it to somebody and there is still royalties to me as the creator, if at a certain moment I would like to give my royalties to somebody else, is that possible? It would be an agreement between two people. Yeah. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, there's automated royalties on this stuff based off of a certain wallet address.
So if you want to give your royalties to someone else, you would now just give them that wallet, which a lot of people will not do because they use that wallet for a lot of other things. But this is all just based off wallet addresses that are owned by people. So you can exchange the value of something, the ownership, by changing it from one wallet to another, or you can actually give someone the wallet and now it's their wallet. The royalties will be going to that wallet.
Okay, so you could sell NFTs on behalf of somebody else and then distribute the earnings afterwards?
You could sell, yes, yeah. Yeah, there's some platforms that do splits, like mirror.xyz is NFTs for like publications. So think like, Medium or Substack, but as an NFT, and they do splits.
I don't understand the splits, but...
So if you're selling an NFT and there's a group of people that were a part of writing an article, and whatever that NFT is sold for gets split between.
Okay, and then people behind it get equally or percentage the royalties. Yeah. Okay. How do you link or sell a physical object to an NFT, like a painting?
It would be basically a certificate of ownership, right, or a chain of custody for that thing. So right now you have like really expensive art in museums that has a certificate of authenticity. That would just be what the NFT is.
Reading some more questions. Yeah, somebody was asking the names of minting platforms, but does that exist? Minting platform? No, it's sales platforms that also do minting. Or if you want to mint your NFT without having a sales platform involved, where do you go?
That would be the blockchain itself. So Ethereum, Polygon.
Blockchain. Where do I go?
Where do you go? Well, that's when you get into code. So you have to be a developer. You have to know how to write the code to do that stuff. But Ethereum, Polygon on Ethereum, that makes gas fees lower. You have Flow, which is Dapper. They do NBA Top Shots. You have every blockchain basically is moving in this direction. So if you want to not use a sales platform and just do this all on your own, you need to have some level of skill in blockchain programming.
Find a developer that can mint it on Ethereum. Okay. Another question is that I already had. We see collectibles and cosmetics in games already, the skins, but also Magic of the Gathering cards, etc. What is the advantage of doing this on a blockchain?
So that's where I'm focused. I think the future of skins is NFTs. So you look at skins as a business model in gaming. They just said Epic just disclosed publicly they made $9 billion in 2 years. That's just one game. Online gaming does about $10 billion a month. So that's only going to grow. People are only going to spend more time in games. They're only going to buy more things. And so in order for a future of gaming to be more decentralized and open, this is the way it happens. This is the only way that it can happen. So I'm working with big companies like Ubisoft and Epic and NVIDIA and the engines like Unreal and Unity to introduce this to them and to make it easy for them to start to use these things. So certainly with what we're doing at Crucible, that is sort of our main focus is how can we create an open future for gaming where NFTs become the in-game currencies and goods and skins, and play to earn mechanics are introduced so that when you play games, you can actually earn these things.
And you could use them across different games and platforms and take your identity along. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, so that's what we're focused on, core identity, making identity decentralized so that you can own all of your personas, your avatars, and their wallets and what they own and your inventory, and you can kind of take it around all over the place.
Okay, because today I think, so you have people who just buy NFTs to showcase them, because it's the same like in your house, you show that you have a nice couch or an artwork on the wall, so you would do that online. And then there are other ways of looking at it, how you can actually use them. And then it would be more linked to avatars or
Yeah, it's funny. This is very much a generational thing. There is a whole younger generation. Most of you guys, I'm sure, have kids that play Fortnite and Roblox, and this is life for them. Games are no different than like going to the pub and hanging out in person. Like, this is where they spend time with their friends. This is where they want to spend their money to collect their things. This is where they want to express themselves in different skins, and and it's very real. So I never have to sort of like over-explain any of this to those sort of kids. Sorry, I think my connection. And it's something that probably my generation and older are still trying to wrap their head around. But the important thing is that games, as we think of them, with these beginnings and ends and levels and bosses, and we buy one game and we as a CD and we put it in, that's not the world anymore. These are all online. They're spaces that you can just go and hang out with friends, and you're buying things because people buy feelings. So the same reason you buy clothing, same reason you buy anything that you like, is why this generation that plays games is buying skins. And so in the future, it'll be important that people who spend all that money and put that investment into skins, that they actually own them and that they can take them with them, and that there's a real world value to it, right? I think that's a lesson that has been learned over this past year, where if I'm just sinking money into a game and buying skins, really that company owns those skins and I can only use them in that game. Like, that's not as valuable as if I'm buying something that has real world value to it. There's a secondary market where a lot of people will buy it from me, and they could potentially become investments for me, and I could accumulate digital wealth this way.
Okay. So once you have sold some NFTs, you have Ethereum in your Metamask wallet. How do I turn it back into fiat? That was another word we were going to explain. How to make pay your rent with it? How to make it back into euros or other?
So fiat is just government money. So it's what as money. Fiat is also credit and debt, everything that comes from the government. What we're talking about is sort of this other crypto, which is not from a government. It's from developers. And so in order to get crypto back to fiat, you have exchanges. So, there's all of these exchanges that are available where basically there's a market, and what you have, people want to buy and they'll buy it. There's also stable coins. So it's very risky to hold a lot into crypto because of how fluctuating the market is. So there's stable tokens that would be like pegged to $1 or pegged to £1 or €1. And so you can take that money into stable, and if the market crashes, it stays at the same value. But it's still not fiat, it's still crypto. So there's all different ways that you can do it. But if you really just want to cash out and pay your bills with it, then you go to an exchange and you sell it.
And you pay for a transaction fee?
Yes.
It's just like a normal stock market.
But far less. Yeah. The transaction fees are very, very minimal.
Okay, perfect. Can NFTs be used as a mean of crowdfunding?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you could definitely sell NFTs to fund the project. You could a good example of this is Star Atlas, which is a new game that right now is selling these like NFT AR posters with like famous people. They're about selling $1 million worth of each poster, and then they're using that to fund the development of the game.
Okay. And somebody else is asking, I hear a lot about the necessity to move to proof of stake blockchain tech, which could be a lot more efficient in energy use. What is your opinion on that? And maybe because, not everybody will understand what is proof of stake. Yeah. Maybe you can explain proof of work, proof of stake quickly.
So proof of work is the way that the Bitcoin blockchain works. It's a race of millions of computers to solve a math problem. Basically, every time that math problem is solved, Bitcoin is created, and that's why so many computers using energy is very environmentally challenging, right? So everybody's in the process of moving to proof of stake, which is not using that same consensus mechanism, but is actually setting us up more for like rich getting richer. You know, if you can prove that you have more stake or you own more of something, then you have more influence in being able to create consensus or be a part of creating consensus. So there's issues with that too, but it certainly is more environmentally sustainable for us to be thinking about.
Okay. And then you have the third proof of space, but then it will get a little bit too complicated. So another question, maybe, we already talked about it a little bit, but it's still a question on the table. Like in this NFT space, which is very crowded, how do you raise above the noise? But what if I don't want to scream for attention on Twitter? Because that's one of the ways that we see happening, and that's not always the nicest way to showcase your work.
I don't think this is specific to NFTs. You know, a lot of artists don't like marketing and don't like business. They don't like that part of it. But we're in an attention economy. So, you know, the way you sell your stuff is to get attention. With NFTs, if you have built enough excitement around what you do, you can sell one, you know, for hundreds of thousands or millions. So you only have to find that one buyer, or you could just distribute widely, you know, and you sell hundreds. But that's up to you, right? You choose. And if you're someone like Beeple, who has put in 15 years of goodwill, giving away the best art, you know, that you make, then you can sell it for 70 million in a market like this. But most people probably not viable for them. So yeah, I think marketing is a part of it, and you can be really creative. There's anti-marketing, right, where you go anonymous, and you, like, Bitcoin is anti-marketing. No one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, and that's worked for it. But it's just your style, you know. Banksy is also anti-marketing, and he gets more attention than most artists. So it's whatever's your style. I think if you don't want to go stand on a pulpit on Twitter and scream your name, you know, don't do that.
I think you can compare it with fairs or commercial showrooms or agents or galleries that are like the middleman. But does it exist already for NFTs? The PR agents or marketing departments or specialists? Are there people or companies already out there that can help you how to define this communication strategy?
There are, yeah. But even to get their attention, you have to market yourself some way. I think, you know, good managers, good galleries will always have a place, because a lot of artists don't want to do that stuff. But again, the whole point of this is for that people have the tools to not need those gatekeepers or middlemen or intermediaries. So you'll find in the community a lot of people don't want that. The whole reason people do this is because they want to take the bull by the horns themselves and like write their own destiny. But if you're an artist who's, I just want to make art, I don't want to market, I don't want to learn the technology, then it's likely that this is not the right fit for you, you know, as well. Like, not everyone needs to do this. This is just a new thing that can be done on the internet.
Okay. How can an artist obtain a digital certificate of authenticity of his artwork so it can be turned into an NFT? And is this something the artist can do himself, is another question.
Well, the NFT is sort of the chain of custody. So that is all encompassing. If you want to create a physical certificate as well, that's really more of like branding and marketing for you, but that's something that you can do. Yeah.
And how can you obtain it? Or you create it yourself?
Yeah, you just create it yourself. The NFT would be a token. That would be the certificate of authenticity that would show the ownership of the thing. It's harder with physical stuff because you have to prove that that NFT is assigned to that physical thing. You know, digital is easier because you can put the file on chain, right? So yeah.
Another question, a little bit from another topic, but where do you save the passwords of your wallet? Is it on USB, Gmail, online, and is that safe?
No, probably not. You want to write these out and keep them in you want to keep it in a safety deposit box, because if you're planning on having your life's work and millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, like, treat it that way. The internet is currently pretty vulnerable. So if you have it in your note app and your phone gets hacked, everyone will have access to that. So probably not right to kind of put that level of value in something that can be hacked. You want to, keep it safe.
And then you also have the two-factor authentication that you can put on top to protect your wallet.
Yeah, those are safeguards so that people can't hack you and steal your stuff. SIM cards make it really easy to take a new phone, put a SIM card in, like, pay money to the person at the telecom, and then just switch the phone. And so if I get a new phone, I put a new SIM card, I know the right person at the telecom company, like, it's called a SIM card swap. Like, I can take your entire iCloud phone backup and put it in a new device. And if you don't have passwords on your stuff and your notepad is just wide open with all your passwords, they're going to get it. This is how a lot of the hacking happens. So 2FA means there's an attempt, on another device. So it's going to my email, which is under my password, and I deny that, right? So it's just a second factor of being able to authenticate.
Okay. I think one of the questions is still, because you were talking a lot about if you already have a community, if you have a following, if you're selected with the right platforms. But what about the younger, maybe smaller artists that are not that far in their career? Do you think it's worth it to give it a try? Because of course there's also the whole cost and investment. What would be your opinion on that?
Like I said, I find that younger kids take to this very quickly. It's not as complex and complicated for them because they game and they are internet native, and they don't have to unlearn all of this other stuff. I think a lot of older, more traditional people have to unlearn all this stuff to then now really digest this new. And 16-year-olds are killing it with NFTs because they just get it. They understand it. They also make the connection to gaming on their own, and they see how big it will get beyond what it is now. So talk to your kids about this, actually. You'll be really surprised how quickly your kids pick this up.
So, but you do need to have a small budget, of course, to mint it first. So that's the first investment that you would need to do.
It's not a huge budget, you might set aside $100, $200 to get started, but the traditional world has costs like that too. Yeah. Like parking as one example, and just you got to spend some money to make money. So but yeah, it's not always so cost prohibitive. There are certain days or weeks where it's ridiculous and you just have to wait it out, but it's not always that way.
Okay. So once you have sold your work as an NFT to the new owner, can the new owner do anything with it? For example, print, photograph, sell physical copies, use it for merchandise, whatever. And can you prevent this as an artist?
It's up to you, really. I think you could sell an NFT with IP to a studio that then makes a movie. That happened. So it's totally up to you. At the end of the day, the only person that's gonna step in the way of someone doing something is the creator, right? So if that person's okay with it, then there's no issue.
Mm-hmm. But you need to decide on beforehand, and it needs to be part of the smart contracts.
Yeah, it should be described as the drop. Like, the person who buys this NFT has the rights to do things and sell merchandise. Like, you would want to make sure that that's clear in the terms.
Mm-hmm. So it's perfectly possible to sell an artwork and still, as a creator, print it several times and sell it in different ways?
Yeah, as the creator still retains the right to do that, absolutely. But if I'm an artist, I actually don't shy away from having people who own the NFT go create merchandise, because it's just more attention on the art, which makes more value for the art. It makes more demand,
Yeah. That's the way how I look at it. Do you think, how do I know if my art is how should I say it? It would be a good style or a good way of type of work that could actually work in this NFT world? Are there certain aesthetics or certain?
Yeah, Cinema 4D is like, the sort of like the most adopted style, but illustration and painting is also. But I think 3D art is probably the most, the most sort of popular style for this kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that other things won't. Clo 3D with fashion certainly is popular as well. And I work with the game engine developers, that build games, and I think that's going to also be exciting. But yeah, whatever your style is, if it's cool and people like it, then try it. There's not like only one style that works. There is a community of people that take to one type of style, and that has shown to be more 3D. But Fuocious is a 18-year-old kid who makes millions selling paintings. So
can you use an NFT as a patent, for example, for design or for furniture?
Yeah, again, it's an experiment. You could try. There's no rules for this. So no one's going to jump in and say, you can't do that with NFTs. That doesn't exist. You can do whatever you want. It might not work, right? The market will decide ultimately, but there's no rules.
How do you support or involve yourself in new decentralized platforms like Crucible? I'm not sure if I understand the question. Do you understand the question?
How do you involve yourself? Come to our Telegram. Introduce yourself. Yeah, that's the best way. Just get to know us. Other decentralized platforms, go to their Discords. That's usually the best place. If you go to their website, you'll see their Discord. You'll get access to the founders. You'll get access to the whole community. You can go in and introduce yourself. I would say just take an entrepreneurial approach to this. Like, be self-directed, be self-inspired. Learn what you can about the chessboard, and then make your moves.
I see Gaetan was asking you, are we going to see features or plugins for game engines like Unreal in the near future?
That is what I'm working on, yeah. What I'm doing with Crucible is in-engine on-chain. So in-engine tools for game developers that create on-chain, development.
Okay. Mathieu is asking, where can I sell publications in NFT?
Mirror.xyz.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Mirror, M-I-R-R-O-R, mirror.xyz.
Okay. Can you actually purchase Ethereum on Metamask?
I think you can now, but you don't. You go to like Coinbase or something to purchase, and then you will send it and hold it in your MetaMask. By the way, I will say, if you're holding a lot of money, don't keep it on MetaMask. Get what's called cold storage, because anything connected to the internet can be hacked. The blockchain itself cannot be hacked, but the custodial application on the internet can. So you take it off the internet on cold storage, something like a ledger or a Trezor, and it'll be like a little USB that you send your tokens to. You disconnect it, and then you keep it in your house. When you start really like accumulating real wealth that you don't want to lose. But you can keep on your MetaMask a couple thousand at a time, just so that you have the ability to move around and do things.
Yeah, so just to simplify it again, I've understood correctly. So you have your hot or cold wallet or exchange to buy the cryptocurrency. You can buy your NFTs in it. You could hold them in your MetaMask, which is a wallet. And again, there you can have an online and an offline version, so a hot or a cold version to actually store it, which is again more safer.
Yeah, and just in the community, you'll hear this a lot. Like, if you keep all your stuff on hot wallets online and it gets hacked or you lose it, like nobody will have sympathy for you, because that's the risk that you take when you're doing that. So everyone will tell you, make sure when it's really valuable, don't keep it online, right? Like people do it and you'll like see a lot of people do it, but it's on your sort of like responsibility to do this, to like make sure that you're covering yourself. So take it off of the internet, because anything can happen. Like you're going to hear this is unhackable, this is secure, but that's not true unless you take it on cold storage, you know? Like if you leave it on Coinbase, you leave it in Metamask, you leave it on any exchange, it can and it does get hacked and you can lose everything.
But if you want to actually sell it on a platform, it needs to be online somewhere.
Yeah, so you'll send it then when you want to sell it.
Yeah. Okay, and there are safe ways to actually send it?
Well, if so, you could leave it. I mean, you could, like I said, you could leave a couple thousand at a time and some NFTs in your MetaMask. It's fine. But like when you're talking about, some people have billions of dollars in Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like, don't leave that on your exchange or in your app that's connected to the internet. That can and will be dangerous. You could lose that, even though people talk about Web3 as this very secure thing. Like if it's on the internet, you're going to keep reading stories about hacks, and it's just going to happen more and more. So what I would do is like take it off the internet on cold storage, and then just choose when you want to do something, when you want to sell it. Plug it in, make the transfer, sell it, and then, you know, take it out and put it back in your safe, you know, room in your house.
I see another question from Shiny. How is digital fashion adapted to avatars on the different game engines when using a universal profile?
Universal profile from what, Luxo? Is that what they're asking?
No, I think what you were explaining about Crucible, that you would have digital identities or avatars that you can use across platforms. But will the avatars be adapted to the different games, including the digital fashion or skins they are?
Yeah, so we're designing an SDK for developers to choose to use. And once they do, then now they're compatible to this. So every developer and publisher has to choose to integrate with this. And then yes, it will become interoperable, where you can move avatars around with inventory and all that kind of stuff. But we're far away from Ready Player One, where it's just all open and happening like that. Right now I'm working with specific companies, specific games, and I'm gonna create kind of like maybe a hallway of like worlds, like maybe 4 or 5 worlds where you can do that, but it's not gonna be overnight that happens.
Okay, so just to explain, so an SDK is a software development kit, which is kind of a protocol, correct?
Yeah, it's a package of software that developers can use.
Okay. I'm looking at the last questions, if there are any more, because we already passed our 1 hour, I see. So if there are maybe some last questions, what's an example of cold storage?
I think you guys put a link up here. If you go into the chat, Flanders put a Ledger and Trezor are the 2 main ones. Okay.
So we also launched 2 other polls, which of course is very exciting to understand, especially after all this this information, like, do you plan to go ahead with NFTs? And I see that almost 90% is still very interested. So that's absolutely interesting to see. And of course, also about 88% is definitely interested to dive deeper into NFTs. So It's definitely a topic that we can talk about for hours and hours. And Ryan, we already had a lot of conversations about it preparing this webinar. What I really would like to advise all of you is, if there are still specific questions on this, you can go to the website of Flanders DC and ask your questions under advice. We will definitely try and do our best to reply to them with, of course, everybody involved at Flanders DC, or otherwise we will look at our network and see if we can link you to the right person to reply to all these different questions. Maybe we will even develop this topic more into other interviews or online features. So please keep an eye on our website for this as well. So thank you very much, Ryan, to answer to all these different questions. I'm happy we were able to reply to almost all of them. So I wish you a very good day in the office, or maybe still at home, and hope to see you soon for our next edition. Thank you.